So let me find my agenda that I put up here. That moves every time I go from one computer to another. Hold a sec. There we go. All right. So with that, Noreen, you want to do the roll call, please, of attendance?
Bonnie Franson,
Present?
Jeff Manson,
Here.
Jason Swerinsky,
Here.
Pat Shea,
Here.
John Allegro,
Here.
Anthony Vaccaro.
Here.
Okay, and with that, we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, Jeff, there you are. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
For all.
Thank you, John. All right, so with that, real quick question, because we have many of our consultants here present for the Monroe Commons project with a scoping document. Ashley, would it be okay if we start with Monroe Commons so we don't have to keep everybody here through the entire agenda?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
All right. Yeah, I think that would just be, I apologize for those who are before this item on the agenda, but again, we just have quite a number of consultants here, and I think it'd be possible best to cover Monroe Commons first. So with that, we do have our consultants present. I'm just looking at the screen. We have Aaron Orner from AKRF, Dave Tompkins, our wetland specialist. Elaine, you're from AKRF?
Correct.
Okay. We have Karen, landscape architect. We have Frank Getchell with Weston Sampson doing hydrogeology. Who am I not seeing? Did I get everybody who's here today? And then of course we have our own consultants, Sean and Ashley. So the purpose of this item on the agenda is to discuss the draft scoping document that's been put together for this particular project. I will acknowledge also that Caleb's here and John Dahlgren's here, who are representing the applicant, as well as Jay Monroe, who I believe is here for the same application. So Ashley, why don't you kind of give an overview of where we are procedurally and what we need to do this evening?
Sure. So the planning board's declared lead agency and the applicant submitted a scope, I think it was maybe in August. So in the interim, you held a public scoping session in September and allowed for some public comments on the scope, written comments as well. So your consultants, your planning consultants, AKRF, has been putting together a new draft scope based on all of the comments that were heard from your own consultants and also from the public and other agencies to the extent any were received. So that's been compiled into a document. Of course, the planning board members' comments were also incorporated into that. So the purpose of tonight really was to go over that now revised draft, hear any additional comments or concerns of the planning board members, consultants, or the applicant's team as well. And the goal then would be to adopt a final scope by the following meeting, November 17th. That's on Tuesday. So we have extended the deadline for adopting the final scope by agreement with the applicant to the November 17th date.
Okay, thank you. So why don't we start with the planning board members? They were present at the public hearing, but I think, they've now had an opportunity to review the scope in more detail. Does anyone have comments or questions about what's contained on the scoping document? I don't see any. Pat, Jeff, John, Jason. John?
Yeah, I have one question on page 33, construction impacts.
Can we bring that up? Does someone have it that they could share?
Yeah, I have, here we go. Oh, I cannot. Okay.
I can
There
put
we
it
go.
up.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it would be good if we made note of, or it was whomever is responding to this would make note of the school transportation and bus schedules on Nininger, going to the high school and the middle school. They're about an hour apart, I think, the start times. So it's rather busy there. And if we have heavy vehicles entering the site off Nininger Road or even off County Route 105, that could cause a pretty big disruption to students getting to school on time.
So do we say anything to that effect?
Well, the way it's written now is that the traffic impact study, and if you go to the traffic section of this, I believe it does address, bus traffic and other things. We could make sure it's called out, but the point of the construction analysis is to just use information from the traffic impact study into the construction phase. So it's going to be using the existing conditions. It's going to be looking at what's anticipated in the construction phase, and the construction chapter will just summarize a lot of the construction traffic analysis. It's going to be part of the TIS, the traffic impact study scope already. If it's not
So-
specifically in there, we can make sure it is, but I believe it was factored in with Creighton Manning already.
So specifically, it has to do with not so much operational traffic once it's the facility is in operation, but what happens during construction and the implications for bus traveling, especially to the middle and the high school. Is that the case, John?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Um,
So I think we could probably make a minor adjustment just to, be clear that it's both operational and construction traffic.
I think that's fine. Elaine, does that sound okay? She's our traffic guru.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine. We'll add it in both sections.
Okay. Anybody else? Do they have a comment?
Bonnie?
Yes, Jeff.
I guess just some feedback for the applicant. As I was going through the scoping document, I was reminded of several things that we had talked about earlier in the process, where I believe it was you who suggested that perhaps the applicant could find examples of similar size buildings to what they're proposing in the Orange County area that would help us get an idea of the extent of what this project and the impacts were going to be like. Also, it mentions in the scoping document an architectural look at the building, which of course we're going to need to do our architectural review, but also what the anticipated interior layout might be. I just really feel like all of these things that are being pointed to in the scoping document, it would be really helpful to have those as early as possible, perhaps before the GIS is ready, because I just really feel like each of those things would really serve the planning board well in helping understand just what it is that the applicant is trying to accomplish here, and help us move them through the process as efficiently as possible, especially when it's a project as extensive as this one.
So in other words, we shouldn't be getting everything packaged in a DEIS document, but we should be getting things, as we progress through the process to review these things even in advance.
If possible, I think it would be beneficial to have access to those as soon as possible, rather than.
Okay.
Yes.
Comment noted. Anybody else have specific comments on the EIS scoping document or the project process or project itself?
Bonnie, this is Anthony. Can we mention something in the water supply to investigate conservation measures for water supply? Or to analyze that?
So when you mean conservation measures,
To best management practices, or consider that for irrigation and other usage.
so in terms of the demand, trying to reduce the demand through water conservation measures. Sean, did you raise your? Oh.
Sorry, I was scratching my head.
I thought you were going to offer something very erudite.
Yeah, I think, Anthony, you're suggesting in water quantity, right? Some kind of best management practice to limit the quantity used on site?
Correct.
Okay.
And also if there are like, control measures on faucets and infrastructure for use, or if they're going to use irrigation systems, timing systems, and best time to irrigate.
Or even native plantings, things that don't require as much water, sort of anything that places demand on water supply.
Those are the things I'm thinking of, yes.
And I'd point you to section 2.4, which is on page 10. We could expand on this if you guys want, but so right now, this is the project description chapter, section 2. Under 2.4, the third paragraph, we just note as part of the describing the project, describe green and sustainable technologies proposed for the mixed-use building, parking, and landscape areas. Is that too general? Do you want to be more specific with that one? We could, because the point was to have them describe this stuff up front as part of what the project is proposing. And then they can carry over into the water chapter, the stormwater chapter, stuff like that. Yeah,
I think anytime we can be more specific, just to be clear as far as what a member is trying to achieve in terms of the analysis, I think it's useful to do that. Whether it's here or in the any water resources section, I think the applicant can describe, water saving features, just like you would potentially describe gray water, or describe, like you say, timers for irrigation, or, things of that nature. With regard to water supply, that reminds me, do we talk about that the water supply system and the system capacity and being used for the project and any future connections? Do we talk about anything of that nature?
It would be under the water resources section.
Yeah, I think it's just from my perspective.
I thought add, but I'm just looking through that section right now.
Okay. I think it's more about project description and, knowing the ultimate disposition of the wells that they're for the project. Or are they going to potentially be for any other projects, in the vicinity, or are there any potential for connection?
I'm sorry, I think there might be something.
I think section 6.2.
What were you saying?
Right at the end, the growth inducing aspects, I think there might be something, I believe we talked about adding something in there about the water demands and future water use. I think it's on the last page.
Of the entire scope?
Yes. Yeah, we touched on under growth inducement on the last page.
Yeah, including such growth on wastewater and water demands, water quality.
Yeah, and we actually say the projected yield, the project site's water supply wells.
Yeah, that was a recent ad from the last talk we had,
Okay,
because I remember you brought that up. But
Right.
then under groundwater as well is where it should be, it would, the other place where it would be covered, which is section 6.
Right, it is in there. It's inferred, at least when we talk about the demand and the basis for the use of the wells, and then the impacts of the demand.
okay, I think maybe just it could be a quick sentence or a phrase that just says, and, use for on-site or potential for other uses. And then to me, it's clear somewhere in there, Aaron, whether it's in growth inducing or in groundwater.
Okay.
Thank you. Planning board members, any other comments? No, Pat, no, Pat says no. Jeff,
No.
nothing?
I don't
Jason,
think-
did you say no?
That's correct. I have no more questions.
Okay. All right, so why don't we then open it up just quick to our consultants? If there's anything else you think we need to address that may not have been captured in this draft? Does anybody have anything they want to add? And then we'll open it up to the applicant. Everybody's good?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm seeing nods, yes. All right, so with that then, why don't we open it up? John, are you gonna take the lead on this, or Jay is? Or Joel?
Well, the only thing I have to say is I'd like to thank everybody for their efforts. This was a very thorough document, and I can tell a lot of time went into this. So I thank everybody for their efforts. If there's any technical comments, that's not going to come from me. So if anybody else has anything they want to say, have at it.
Sure. This is John Dahlgren from Tim Miller Associates. I also want to say thanks to AKRF. It was quite an effort to pull together everybody's comments. So I just have 2 questions to kind of clarify some new additions to the scope that I saw. One is on page 15 regarding surface water testing. I spoke to Aaron today about these two issues, and one was the addition of the surface water testing. And I understand this may have been the result of the site walk and seeing some turbidity in the on-site pond and water course, and just wanted to get clarification on why this was added, and how this advances the evaluation of this particular project. I know this could be coming from offsite, but it does impact this site too. So if somebody could from the town side could just weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'll just say, so it's Dave and Frank can weigh in, but I think it's, from my perspective, it was twofold. One had to do with stormwater and whether or not that pond is being affected by runoff, but the other was just simply the wetland itself. We didn't know whether some of that turbidity was just naturally occurring, and whether from a wetland perspective, it has implications for the quality of the wetland. But Dave, and Frank, if you could expand on that.
Sure, I can start. When we were out at the site for the site walk, we did see turbidity coming in from the west, upgrading sources. So the purpose here is twofold. One is to document the quality, as Bonnie said, of the wetland and the water in there right now. But 2 is also to establish a baseline so that impacts could be assessed against that. Now, the site plan that we looked at has quite a bit of wetland filling, so that is going to affect water quality significantly, and you're going to have a good amount of parking lot runoff yourself. So I think baseline becomes really important in establishing what it is now and what it will be later. Because you're gonna, there's gonna be issues with, petroleum products, salinity from de-icing products. So that's a concern. And since you have a water supply so proximal to the wetland, that kind of multiplies or kind of magnifies it from a surface water issue into a groundwater issue, and will draw down, affect that wetland, and you can introduce some kind of contaminant from the surface water runoff into the groundwater regime. So we're trying to reach out, document what's there, both from a water quality and a wetland. And I think, although I read the wetland report that your consultant provided, he does not address in there any kind of functional value of that wetland. So I don't have a good feel for it as to whether it's what he thinks it's a high quality or not. But based on what I saw, it does have some decent habitat in there. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, trying to establish a baseline to determine what impacts you're going to have.
Okay,
Thank you.
and that's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to clarify why
Okay.
Yeah,
that was inserted.
Just to add on what Dave said, it's all about the baseline. And I think once we were out there, not only seeing the turbidity, but finding that one of the supply wells has already been drilled smack dab in the middle of the wetland. It's like right there at ground zero. So I think besides looking at the groundwater quality when that well is finally tested, the fact that it is right in that wetland and you've got this large development that's currently ongoing that, could potentially be generating, runoff going into that same area. It kind of protects the applicant too, establishing what's there now versus later on when the applicant looks at it in terms of post-development. It just gives a good measure.
Right.
I was going to say, this is Caleb Pavelski from Peters Act and Powell Engineering. I just want to add with regards to the turbidity of the stormwater that's reaching the site right now. We've been in contact with the engineers and some of the contractors for the neighboring site. We've spoke with them about this issue. What I've last heard, as early as this morning, is they're going to look into rerouting a lot of the stormwater away from the area where it's going onto our property now. So what he had said to me is the active work areas where any type of turbid runoff would be, coming down to that nearby basin, that will be rerouted. So once those changes are made, the turbidity should decrease. That should not be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's unacceptable. And it's obviously not of your making, but they shouldn't be, conducting business in a manner that all this unfiltered runoff is basically traveling through your site, boom, right into the wetland. So, I don't know how that gets addressed because we don't enforce things in that community. All we can do is look to, with your assistance, try and straighten out the problem because it does travel onto your property and then it creates a problem for the on-site wetland.
I would just want to say, I just want to clarify one thing. It's not unfiltered runoff. One of the things that they had done is it does travel down into a sediment basin down there and it runs through a filter. So I would just clarify, it's not unfiltered stormwater.
Okay.
They do have a stormwater management practices down there.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if it was when we went out into the field, there was discussion with Joel that some of it had basically breached, some of the water had breached during a heavy storm, some of those systems. So I don't know if that was the cause of turbidity or if this is an ongoing thing. And again, that just speaks to getting the baseline, right. Anybody else?
Okay.
I just wanted to add one thing. I'll defer to Dave on this, but I would assume that whatever they do on the adjoining property, one of the things they're not going to do is alter that hydrology relative to the wetland, because that stream obviously is some component of that hydrology. I would assume that's not going to be the intent, or hope it's not.
Yeah, I think where Frank is coming from is Caleb, you mentioned that they're going to reroute the stormwater. So once you start rerouting, hydraulic features, you have an impact on the wetland. Okay. So it kind of, that worries me because your job is to assess the impacts of your project on the wetland, but the conditions coming on site may be changing. If you follow what I'm trying to say is that's kind of important for you to narrow that down, what they're going to do, because you could be assessing a moving target. Okay, if they're going to change the hydrology coming onto your site. Make sense?
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Caleb, did you do the engineering for that site?
No,
Did
I'm
Peter,
not.
Zach, and Fau?
For the neighboring site or?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not involved.
Okay.
Our firm is not involved.
Okay. No, I was just curious if you have any knowledge of what's happening there. So.
I do not.
All right. Anybody else?
Just
John, you had
one-
additional?
Yeah, one more. And it's related to the alternatives. And I believe a new alternative was added, 19.4, the terrain adaptable parking alternative. And I just wanted to get clarification on maybe specifically how we can provide this alternative, or what your thoughts are. I think there was some discussion of this in previous meetings.
Yes.
And then in speaking to Caleb, he maybe can speak to this further, but the current plan does have some more or less tiered parking in that it's at different levels. Like the ground floor comes, the main parking comes in the first floor, and then there's a driveway up to higher levels in the back that goes to the third floor. So it is sort of tiered at this point on the current plan, and so just want clarification on how we can address this alternative.
Yeah, so actually I discussed it, and it was with Karen, especially when we went out on our site visit.
Okay.
And so it's not just about terrain adapting the parking lot by a series of fill, essentially, to get to grade, but it's, can you do it in a manner where, as you're doing this terracing, that you actually have the ability to preserve some of, or islands of, the existing vegetation. Because ultimately, if you clear cut, except for the area around the wetland, if you clear cut the vegetation there, it'll take a tremendous amount of time to grow to a point where it may screen, provide, first of all, islands to deal with the heat effect of parking. But also it'll take a while to just provide some kind of screening benefit. And so the thought was, it's not really about the terracing of the parking as you go up grade, but it's in combination with the preservation of vegetation. And, especially if ultimately you get into a situation where the required parking can be reduced, because you've demonstrated that there isn't that need for parking, it may open up the opportunity to create these islands, as you go up the slope.
Sure. Okay.
Karen, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, even if the grading is such, ideally, it would be great to save some of the existing vegetation. But even if the grading makes it impossible to do that, having green swaths, that new vegetation, like thick green swaths, at least 10 feet, 15 feet, where vegetation can be grown between groups of parked cars, would help a lot in water conservation. Perhaps there could be some green infrastructure put into these islands at various points, and that would help water the plants and also provide breaks in visual breaks, as well as the cooling effect of trees to be able to really grow a forest and put back what, even if they can't save, they can put back what was lost. But that's the intent of terrain adaptation rather than clear cutting and just asphalting everything.
And if I could add a sentence or two, it's my thought on that was maybe we could fragment the parking lot and try to preserve some of the lineal wetland features and reduce the amount of overall fill that's needed. That has a positive impact of reducing, of making it easier to get your wetland permit and reducing the amount of acreage you have to mitigate. So I know it's a little bit of work in looking at how to fragment that parking area to maintain some of those areas, but there are some project benefits by doing it that way.
Thank you, Dave. And Karen. Does that give you the sense of what we're looking for, John?
Yes, that helps.
Yeah, I would say that helped. I would just like to clarify again, I'm just looking at the plans right now.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about where like the current building is located, and what we would be working with, and you encounter this on the site walk as well. There's an area that is kind of flatter along the western portion of the site, but then you have that dip down where it dips into the beginnings of the wetlands, the area. Those areas are, potential areas where we would have parking. So it's not necessarily just a clear cut, all fill everywhere. But as you actually get to the building, if it goes from a cut to a fill, or not, I'm sorry, from a fill to a cut. And that's when we're trying to adapt to the slopes in the back, the greater slopes. My only thing is, I would say that there is a lot of terrain adaptation that we have there in terms of the elevations already.
Okay. Well, I think that, that's probably the benefit of coming in, in the interim between, preparing the DEIS and submitting it. We could work out some of these alternatives to, especially if there is a potential reduction in the parking where these islands may be, and can be embedded within, again, you're trying to terrain adapt the building and the parking. We're trying to do it for also purposes of greening up the site. So, it can be reviewed by Karen, it can be reviewed by others to see, the lineal wetland preservation, maybe how we can achieve a site that's, that's even better.
Okay.
Applicant, did you have any other comments? Do we have anything about the trees that are there as far as, so we had been out there, we saw some large diameter trees. We talked about the Joel Mann service tree, possibly preserving it, but we're not sure what the condition is. So I just want to make sure, Aaron, that there's something about, large diameter trees to, consider their quality. I know Karen was kind of poking around in there and had some, questions as to whether in fact it may, be getting hollow or it may structurally not be sound. But I just want to make sure we kind of cover that.
Yeah, so if you look under 7.1 for the vegetation and wildlife section, we added in, to be clear, complying with the town code tree inventory requirements, just as the baseline, again, for what, to submit a tree inventory in accordance with the town code, including everything such as species, diameter, breast height, condition of the tree, potential for bat habitat was something that Dave wanted added as well. And then for the potential impacts, the tree inventory feeds into that as well, as far as like what does that find and what does that mean for the project when where are these trees located and what is the building, what is the parking lot going to do to some of these? I think it covers it.
It's covered it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we cover the requirement that the town has to do this sort of thing for all the project sites. It's a lot of effort for a site this size, but I think we are all in agreement that it's needed.
Okay, great.
Connie, your code does have a section on landmark trees, and thought maybe you had mentioned that at one point. I don't know whether any of these larger trees or any other trees on the property might qualify for that. Is that something you would want?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all within the context of the code. When the zoning was being written a few years back, the Monroe Conservation Commission did a lot of work on trees and tree types and, protecting them as part of the overall development process. So I think if we refer to the zoning, the zoning talks about landmark trees, et cetera, we're probably covered, Ashley, unless you think differently.
I'm just looking at the section it's in is a different section. So perhaps even just adding in a statement, including identifying any trees that would qualify or, as a landmark tree because of its historic significance, whatever the criteria is in the code.
So yeah, for 7.1, maybe the very last paragraph there where it talks about submitting the tree inventory. At the end of that paragraph, we can add on. In addition, describe if any of the trees meet the definitions of landmark trees in the code, something like that.
Yeah, we could take a look at that.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of something that to some extent is done because of the code, that it's embedded in there. But I think, again, if we're explicit, then.
Aaron, just for your reference, that's 5793.
Thanks.
Into the town code.
Ani, I might gave up my name on that tree. Maybe this will help.
No, it's your tree, Joel. I made the unfortunate error of calling it a memorial tree.
I'm still here.
So that's why I'm calling it a service tree now.
Thank you.
Anybody else have comments or questions?
Bonnie?
No? Yes.
Can I ask a question? Something that occurred to me as I was reading the scoping document. It's not particular to the scope, but in relation to the project. So I understand the applicant has petitioned the town board to consider revising the bulk table in the HI zone to change the maximum height from 40 feet to 50 feet. What's been proposed to us is a 4-story plus basement, approximately 400,000 square foot building. And what occurred to me as I'm reading is that proposal assuming that will be granted the change and that without that, the building might have to be reduced in size? Or is this what would be proposed based on the existing 40 feet? And if the town board decides to change the bulk, would we be potentially looking at an even larger building?
My understanding is that the proposed action includes the need to increase the height. So that's already, in fact, if anything, I think we have an alternative, sort of an as of right alternative or as per zoning alternative, where we look at the project in the event they don't get those changes and they have to build it in accordance with the present zoning bulk standards for that zoning district. So right now, the proposed action assumes that they would get the rezoning. And as part of seeker, in fact, they have to also evaluate what the implications are for any of the other properties in that zone. Because once it's increased, that means anywhere where there's HI, and there really aren't that many zones, there's just one more over, where the medical building is that we reviewed recently. It's not an extensive area, but it still has to be reviewed.
Okay, I thought that what was being proposed took into consideration already the concept of 50-foot high building, but I just want to clarify that because I was not 100% sure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Anyone else? All right. So Ashley, next steps would be to have our meeting then on the 12th. Take care of these minor additions or revisions to the scoping document, the draft, and then we would adopt on the 17th.
Yes, so I think AKRF could make the few revisions that were discussed tonight, propose some changes, and then we could review that. It's this coming Tuesday, the 17th. And then, any final changes that would need to, be made at that meeting, any language things could be accomplished, and it could be adopted the 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, just so I can recap what my notes have here for as far as edits. And I think what might make sense to do is just recirculate another PDF for this with the red lines showing what's different.
Sure.
After what we talked about tonight. Okay. So we have.
Yeah, and I think, Aaron, I think you could do the red line, and then, that's what we could act upon for adoption, and then we'll just take the red lines out.
And
If
clean it
that's
up,
okay, Ashley. Yeah.
Is
Sure.
the board
Oh, I'm sorry.
is the board going to require to see that prior to the meeting? You need to see it on Monday? Do you need to see it? I mean, today's Thursday, the meeting's on Tuesday. That's going to be circulated beforehand. I just want to make sure the board's going to be happy that they've seen the red line before the meeting. Not going to need more time on it, so.
I mean, I think from my perspective, I think they're nominal changes, clarifying changes. So I don't see that we couldn't act on Tuesday, unless Ashley, you think differently.
Yeah, I think, Aaron, I don't know, as far as, timeline, we could talk tomorrow more about this, and we could just go through the changes that were requested, and then I don't know what your scheduling is, but I'm sure either tomorrow or by Monday, I would think there'd be something circulate.
Yeah, we could try our best to get something around tomorrow by close of business. This has all these in it. We can mull it over the weekend. We could talk Monday again, and we could even talk at the meeting. If there's, I think, isn't there some flexibility to maybe adopt it with a revision?
Yeah, if there's anything,
Resolution.
exactly. It could always be finalized, subject to whatever changes are made Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just recap what I've got. So we have construction. Just add a little more language in the construction traffic about conflicts with bus schedules. Sound right? Adding a little bit more language about describing water supply best management practices, or best water conserving measures proposed for the project up front and in the water section. See, for the wells, add a little bit to determine if there is potential for other developments to utilize the wells, not just the site. Landmark trees, adding that in a little bit to the vegetation and wildlife when you talk about the tree inventory. I think that was it. I don't think there was any actual language changes for the terrain adaptable alternative. I think they just wanted clarification for what we were looking for there.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that covers it. Not a lot of stuff.
Great.
Probably something tomorrow.
That'd be great if we could. All right. So is there anything else, Ashley, we need to do in terms of business, or we'll move forward, wait to see Aaron's revisions, and then take this up on Tuesday?
Yeah, that sounds good.
This is Anthony. I just had a last thought.
I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry you just went through that summary, but is there anything in the scoping document about energy conservation and solar roof panels and reduced carbon footprint?
So the energy chapter makes a statement about describing, because we don't know right now, it hasn't really been presented much information besides the site plan and the original scope. But there is a section in there in the energy chapter to describe energy conservation measures proposed. So it's up to the applicant to tell us if they are proposing anything. I don't think we know yet.
Okay.
There's certainly an opportunity to discuss that as the review of the project goes on, if that's something that the town wants to see. But right now we're asking just the applicant to tell us what's proposed.
Okay.
So you can make a decision as you review the EIS.
All right. Thank you. Pardon me for that.
No problem.
Okay.
When I share this, do you want me to send it around to everybody, the board, the applicant, all the consultants as one big email? that work best?
Why don't you first send it? No, I think you could send it to everybody. I think they're, again, pretty straightforward revisions, unless you want to maybe send it to Ashley and Sean first and then circulate it around just for a quick review. But otherwise, I don't have a problem with it being sent around to everybody.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk to Ashley tomorrow about that. It should work.
All right. All right, so with that, we will reconvene on Tuesday. Ashley, do you think we need everybody here? I know our consultants are holding the date open. Should they all be on the call for Tuesday, or do you think at this point?
I mean, I don't foresee anything, really major coming up as far as needing their specific input on a specialty that they have. I don't know. I think everything's been hashed out. So if for some reason something came up, we could reach out to them, see if they're available, or we can work.
Okay.
It out, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I want to give you all a night off. Something not available to Ashley or to Sean. All right, so thank you all for all the hard work, all the good work. I think we're going to have a scoping document on Tuesday. It'll get circulated. Ashley, she can discuss sort of the next steps after that, and the applicant will move forward with putting their DEIS together, and then hopefully we'll be seeing them and working forward and on the plans themselves and further refining them as we go along. All right, thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all. So, where did my agenda go?
Mark, you can put me in as a attendee.
Oh my goodness, my roaming agenda. I'm going across 3 screens and I cannot see it. Noreen, was Golden Delight on next?
Yes.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is Golden Delight. So we have Joel, you're representing them?
I'm not sure if, the other DG Management and Meadow Hill are rather minor discussions. I don't know if you wanted to do those also.
Yeah.
Up to you.
Yeah, let's take care of those real quick. That's okay. So let's tackle DG. And essentially that is a letter that was prepared on the majority of the board's half. That goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals so that they understand the planning board's position on the variances that the applicant is seeking. Ashley drafted it up for us, and Ashley or Sean, do we want to bring up that letter? And does anybody have any final comments? Ashley, do we have to do that by resolution, forward it to the ZBA, or we'll just,
I think
if we're okay with it?
The board wants to make a motion to send that letter with any modifications you want tonight. And that way it's clear, because I did include a footnote in there if there's going to be, just to let them know if not everyone voted for it, just what the vote was, just so that's clear. So whatever that is tonight, I could add into that footnote.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be good to get a vote. So. Sean, do you have that letter?
Yeah.
Or Ashley?
Come up.
I'm not seeing it, but that could be me.
Yeah, I see it.
I see it.
Let me get it up. There it is. Okay. So members, if you haven't had an opportunity, just take a look at it quickly. Everybody gone through the first page? Okay, everybody good? Let me know if you need more time. All right, so with that, I will make a motion that we forward the letter that's been written with regard to DG management and the referral of the subdivision application to the ZBA for variances. May I have a second?
I'll
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so either Jeff or John.
I beat you, Jeff.
So it's John. And Noreen, can you do a roll call?
Yes, Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Sorinsky,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
and Lisa is absent.
All right, so with that, the motion carries. So we'll get that letter out to the ZBA, and then it's up to them in terms of what they do with regard to the area variances. So John, do you have any other questions?
No, that was it. The letter hit what the zoning board asked for, basically the reasoning behind the cluster, choosing the cluster. So it's perfect.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Or
Or are we seeing you for more?
Yeah, I'm doing the Golden Delight.
Oh, the Golden Delight,
Oh.
all right. All right, so quickly, Meadow Hill, just in terms of the wetlands. So Peter Zach and Fow has been asking that, someone from the town go out, take a look at the wetland delineation and validate that delineation boundary, and that they also just look generally at wetlands in general on the site. And so to go forward, since we have already Dave working with us on Monroe Commons, it was my thought that we would ask him to go out and check out this site and advise us as far as the acceptability of the wetland delineation. And, more generally, we don't really have someone that we work with regularly with regard to wetland delineation. So we could, try Dave Tompkins and his firm out, for some time period. And again, use him for these situations when someone needs to go out and verify the wetland. Part of the reason we're asking him to do it is the applicant isn't seeking, I don't think, a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps of Engineers. So, we rely on a consultant to tell us, yes, the wetland boundary is reasonable. So if you have basically two consultants agreeing, they don't have to go off to Army Corps because they're in fact not, I don't think they're proposing to impact the wetland. Exactly. So I just wanted to get a sense of the board, if it's all right to use Dave Tompkins for that application specifically. And then if everyone is okay with, perhaps if this comes up again, using Dave Tompkins and his firm for other, wetlands that may come out, and try them out for a couple of these and see how it works. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Does that seem reasonable?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I think it would be prudent for us to have a stand-in retainer with them.
Terrific. Anybody else?
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay, great. So, Ashley, should we make a motion?
Yes,
Okay,
a motion to appoint, is it CHA? consultant
CHA, Dave Tompkins. Mm-hmm.
To act as the wetlands consultant on the Meadow Hill project, and then
And to further enter into a retainer with the firm to do future wetland reviews on behalf of the planning board.
yes,
So
to enter into general. So what that'll be, that they'll be your on-call wetlands consultant. So whenever a project comes up, you know, the board will ultimately decide, yeah, we want to refer it to them, but you already have the terms in place. As with all other consultants, it'll be an escrow that's paid by the applicant and all that. So
okay. So I will make that motion that we retain Dave Tompkins and Club Harbor Associates to both review Meadow Hill and to establish a retainer, on-call retainer with him to review wetlands. And frankly, want to expand this a little, you know, that they're also ecologists. And so if for any reason we need them to look into that as well, we can, you know, utilize his firm services. So with that, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. I'm just going to say, all in favor, raise your hand or say yes.
Yes.
you can do yes or a. Yeah.
Yes, okay. So everybody's in favor. So Ashley, if you could work out with Dave a retainer agreement for us. And then I actually didn't bring this up, didn't think about it, but I think the other person who's important to have on board, someone I know that Sean's worked with, I've worked with, is the landscape architect. You know, half the battle with any of these sites is making them attractive. And Karen has done a lot of landscaping reviews. I work with her in Montgomery. So I don't want to take that up this evening because it wasn't on our agenda, but perhaps for the next meeting, if you could think about whether you think it'd be reasonable to have Karen involved in the reviews. And again, Sean knows her, I know her, and she does this on a regular basis. And I think it's, again, another important component of, you know, when we're reviewing, especially, you know, non-residential site plans in particular. So, okay, with that, so give that some thought for the next meeting. I think we'll try to get that on the agenda. And if there's someone you know, alternatively, then, you know, send an email to Noreen and let us know. All right, so we tackled DG Management, Monroe Commons, Meadow Hill. So back up to the top, Golden Delight Bakery. And I think John was going to be here for that. And is Joel also here for that?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I thought he said he was.
I'm fairly new to the project. I was just brought on about a week and a half ago.
All right. I see Joel still on. I see Jay still on. That might be for some.
I know at the work session, Lipa had been there, so I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. So let's, if anybody's an attendee, I think you can raise your hand if you want to participate or send a chat message if you want to.
Can't send a chat.
Okay.
The attendees can't send the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I talked to Leaper earlier today. He said he would just be in the background.
Okay. Very good.
He
So
doesn't
John,
like to speak.
yes, he's quiet.
He never wants to
listener.
talk.
So John, why don't you begin and give an overview of the application, and then I think we'll have Sean. Have you done a review at this point?
I have. Yep. I have some.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So then we'll have Sean provide comments, Ashley provide comments, and then we'll open up to the planning board.
Okay, that's fine. I'll be brief, only because I'm still playing catch up on the application.
Okay.
So the property is located at 31 Larkin Drive. It's the site of the existing Golden Delight Bakery. It is in the LI zoning district, and the property is approximately 5.4 acres in size. Now, I'm aware that there are violations that were issued on this property by the building department. And I believe one of them was, there was a landscaping company that has moved into the building. So it's my understanding this application's been going on for some time in the town. It looks like it's been before the planning board with another consultant earlier this year. And it looks like the map that you have in front of you is that submission that was last made to you. And I believe that we're before you tonight to remedy the amended site plan process for a landscaping company that is moved into the building. And under the LI district regulations, that is a special exception use. And there's a chart at the bottom of this plan that lists the uses in the building, their square footage, and the zoning conformance of that. We are in the process of basically updating this site plan, getting all of the what is on the site existing is today, and supplying you that, probably for our next submission. But the applicant submitted this in order to get the process started because I guess he had done, most of this work over the last year or so. So it's my understanding that we're before you for an amended site plan and a special exception permit for the landscaping, for storage and landscaping materials on the site, as well as to remedy any of the building department violations. I think one is for a shed, I believe. So that's the gist of the application. I'm sorry, I'm not completely up to date on it. We just came on board to basically get this thing moving and going.
All right, thank you, John.
Sean may have more of the history than I do.
Yeah, actually, Sean, before you start, why don't just briefly, Ashley, can you speak to, I don't know if you talked to Ben or what the violations are, if this is a site plan amendment, just maybe talk quick about procedure before we get into substance.
Sure. So I did get to speak with Ben earlier today, and my understanding is that, so the main building has been there for a while with the bakery. That's approved, but there is the landscaping business, as John had mentioned, so that requires a special permit for the landscaping warehouse. And there's also some other, I guess, warehouse storage uses that have also been added. There's an office as well that I think the office was previously a bakery office. Now it's going to be a different type office, but it's going to be a site plan amendment to add all of these new uses because currently the only thing that is supposed to be there is the bakery. And then there's also a couple of structures. So if you could zoom in there maybe a little bit, so there's some sheds and containers that require approval. So there's one shed that's closest to Larkin that's kind of an odd shape that I'm told has approval, but the remaining two structures next to that need approval. And then also on the right side of the property, those three also need approval. So I'm not aware of the specific as far as whether notice of violations or anything like that are outstanding, but I could definitely follow up with Ben on that.
And since we're talking about those containers and sheds, the way I read the code, this shed here, since it's in the front yard and was not permitted, that would not be allowed currently. So it would have to be either moved to the rear or the side. And additionally, these containers are defined as temporary trailers, or they're defined as trailers, excuse me, which can only be used temporarily for a maximum of up to 3 years with site plan approval. So.
All right, so with that, Sean, do you want to share your additional comments?
Sure. The first was just going over the zoning compliance in the table that was provided. It seems accurate for both the dimensions and the uses. Just I'd like for John to clarify in the chart down below here, it shows warehouse for both the plumbers storage as well as building materials storage as a portion of the interior of the building, but they're shown as storage right here. So that storage is not defined as a permitted or special exception use. So that was clarified. Secondly, there's a septic system that's existing on the site. However, there is sewer available in Larkin Drive, so I didn't know if that was something that the applicant wanted to address at this time, connect to the sewer, since they are within the sewer district and are paying the operations and maintenance taxes associated with that. I didn't see any parking calculation or parking spots delineated on the site, so that's something that'll have to be addressed. We touched on the trailers. There's a couple things shown on this survey over in this vicinity that are depicted but not labeled, or don't have any real symbols defined. So I wasn't sure what those were for. On the north side of the site, I'm not really clear as to where the property boundaries are. I believe this is the kind of the northwestern portion of the boundary, but I wasn't sure if this was also, I just wasn't sure where the property ended. So then there's a right of way here with an existing driveway that comes off Larkin Drive. I wasn't sure if that was used for access for the site. Then additionally, there's a gravel drive that's connected to that asphalt drive that traverses the entire site all the way to the back. I didn't know, what that driveway was used for. John, do you happen to know?
I believe that gravel driveway is within an existing easement that provides access to the rear parcel there that now informally Mendelwitz.
Okay.
But we'll look into it when we upgrade the survey map.
Sure. Additionally, there's a 135-foot wide right-of-way shown here, but it was unclear where the I guess this would be the southwestern boundary is. I'm assuming it's at the end of this arrow, but I'm not sure if it's, across the whole site or not.
Yep.
And then lastly, my notes from the technical workshop from May 11th of 2018, I had noted that the site received water from the village of Curious Joel, but there's a private well shown on here, so I just was wondering if you could clarify that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay.
Anything else, Sean?
No, I'm sorry, that's it.
Okay. I would just remind everyone that our minimum lot area is determined after subtracting out certain constraints. So, whatever they are, they need to do that. So we should be seeing net lot area. If that's not done, just to be clear whether it is or isn't. And I don't know the constraints that are present, but again, just a reminder. So Ashley, did you have some substantive comments on the application?
Yes, I did have some. So Sean hit on a bunch because we did have, I think, a tech review in March of this year with the applicant before the world shut down. So it's a little hazy.
Day before.
There were some things that we had discussed there. The SBL in the bulk table is incorrect. Again, calculating the net lot area in the bulk table, making sure everything's labored. I guess there was maybe some garbage enclosures or cans that are shown but not labeled. There's possibly a stream in the rear of the property. Some other things that needed clarification that Sean had touched on, whether they'd be connecting to Orange County Sewer District number 1, and also this application indicates that the water is from an on-site well, but at the tech review, we were told that the well was inactive and that the property was getting water from the Village of Kira Stroll. So we do need some clarification on that. Also, as far as seeker, they don't have the dimension shown of any of the new structures. So again, the existing main building that's been approved, but right now, I mean, I think it's likely going to be under 4,000 square feet, whatever's being added, these additional storage type sheds or structures. I'm told those are, I think, fairly small. So we'll need the square footage on those to determine whether it's a type 2 action, and also what uses are going to be in each of those, I guess, sheds, or as Sean had mentioned, whether it's some type of storage trailer that is supposed to be temporary, then that should probably be changed to a different type structure if the intent is to keep it beyond the 3 years. Any new or unapproved structures would be subject to architectural review. And then also you have your general special use permits that are going to apply to the landscaping storage special use. So the remaining uses are all permitted, and there's no individual special use permit standards for the landscaping storage use, but the board does have those, general standards to consider in the code. So that's something, I don't know, John, if you typically submit a narrative or something, just kind of showing how you fit within those criteria as well in 5712. But I think that, and it does require a public hearing because of the special use permit. And also it will need to be referred to Orange County.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, so I'll kind of kick it off for the planning board, and I'm going to be frank. The place looks like a dump. It is an eyesore when you're on Larkin Drive. And I think in part it's because of all the multiple tenants that are in this building and multiple sheds. And this is kind of expanded incrementally. And so what I would like to see is the site improved with parking lot spaces delineated. Instead of having multiple sheds, is it possible to get one big shed or one big building or whatever's necessary to house equipment? The pavement's breaking up, a lot of equipment stored all over the place, dumpsters kind of here and there. So I really think this is an opportunity to clean up the site and make it a better location, for the tenants that work there and for the operation of that facility. So, I'm hoping, John, you can come up with a nice plan to take care of that. And again, so that, the owner can look to, create a better site plan overall for this property that's on Larkin Drive.
Yes, the owner has indicated that to me, and when he brought me on board, that he wants to work with the board, get this cleaned up and through.
Fantastic. Again, there's fencing, different heights, different pole heights. It's just, it needs a cleanup. It really does. So that's my comment for this evening. We're obviously going to go through the site plan review process, and John, you're just coming on board, so I know you need to talk to the owner and decide what's going to be done as far as cleaning the place up. But that's just, I think, probably a sentiment that many feel. Anybody else have comments? Actually, let me just add, I think it'd be very useful to have a floor plan of some sort, John, who's where, I think that's just kind of essential for fire safety. We know the bakery going on, we have things being stored in the building, sort of who's occupying what in terms of that building.
Do you want, like, the plan now has the building kind of divided up?
Yeah, is that actually, Would you say that's, I mean, is that accurate or, because that's really, that's not a floor plan, that's really just,
That's what I was just saying, is that, do you want
Yeah.
an actual floor, I mean, I have never been in it yet. So I don't know
Okay.
if it's accurate or not, but are you looking for more than that? Or you want more of like an architectural floor plan or?
I want from my perspective as one member, I would like more than this. I think this is useful, but is it accurate? And, I think that if you go in there, in maybe as a separate sheet, just understanding what tenants are there, because also, if a tenant changes, if it's being further subdivided, a floor plan will document what's there right now. And so we know, if someone gets added, if someone else moves out, there's a record of it. So
Okay, well,
I think that'd be beneficial.
What's on
And,
file?
and, and it's unclear to me, John, because I thought this said 2 stories. And I'm not sure what portion, is it the entire building? If it's a portion of the building, because you'll.
I do see the note, it says stairs to 2nd story office, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So, this isn't necessarily, it's a little hard to tell then if this is 2 stories, is that showing all the space for each of the uses? And you're going to need to know that for parking requirements anyway, right?
Correct.
John,
Yes.
in the portion of the building that the bakery is using, is that merely a production facility or is a portion of that retail? I think some of that in the narrative in relation to the bakery and in relation to the other tenants, so we have an understanding of kind of, is it just employees coming and going, delivery trucks? Are there customers coming on site, that kind of thing, whether it's to meet with the landscapers, for example, or again, if there's retail going on in the bakery portion of the building. I think that would be instructive.
Okay, I'll prepare a full narrative, list of uses, and exactly like you said, Jeff, how those uses generally operate.
That'd be great.
Did the planning board members get a copy of this plan? Is this the plan that was approved, and what is that dated?
I'm not sure if there wasn't a previously approved plan.
And maybe, Sean, you could look into that with Ben. I know sometimes our records are a little in disarray because of the mold issue. We don't always know where they are. But yeah, it'd be interesting what was approved and what is actually going on in the building now, to the extent that something's even available.
Yeah, I know in his correspondence earlier today that he was aware of the bakery when he started in 2006, but wasn't sure if there was, any documentation to that effect, but I'll reach out to him.
Can we also get a copy of the approved resolution?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's going to be an easy thing to locate, but you could certainly try, at least from my understanding, because I guess this has been there for quite a while. So I don't know whether I don't know what your code was at that time, but I don't know whether there's like a site plan, approved site plan, something like this, where this plan is not, I think this is from February of this year, Anthony. So this plan itself was not approved. This is just showing what's there, to my knowledge.
Yeah, because I think that speaks to, is this a site plan amendment? If there was never a site plan for the property. So are we just actually going to now memorialize these uses because as part of a site plan approval in general, and special use permit? And I think that depends on, to some extent, what even has been approved. I don't know how long that building has been around. I don't think it predates zoning, but we don't have a lot of history, I think, at this point. And Noreen, if you could look into that, it'd be appreciated. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment. I agree with you. I think it's a trashy looking place. I pass it all the time. There's more and more trucks and equipment there. I think the landscaping company needs to do a little landscaping around the area. You know, they could do bushes or trees or just kind of hide everything to some extent, make it look nice along that road there, because it does really give kind of a trashy appearance. So that's my thought.
Thank you. And that's part of the reason why maybe retaining someone like Karen would be useful, because then we could have her reviewing the landscape plan and commenting on where things could be screened. Jason, John, do you have any comments?
No, you said it best. We were just all thinking it.
Someone had to say it. And again, I think it's a business and we want businesses to thrive in the community, but we also want them to be cleaned up. And I think a good site plan will go a long way. All right. Any other comments on this? You know, I know, John, you have to get up to speed. So, you know, when you're ready to come back with narrative and updated site plan and responding to Sean and Ashley's comments, then I think we can go from there, and we'll do some more research as far as what in fact was approved, if we have any documentation.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, we'll probably be about a month to compile all this and most likely back to you in January, I would think.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You know the direction to go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So do we see you next week or no?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, then have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, same to all of you. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. So next item on the agenda is Aaron Kestenbaum. And who do we know who's representing?
I don't. Well, maybe Noreen does.
I believe Jay is on. Jay Myro.
Myro is the one who sent it to me.
All right, so let's bring Jay in.
I don't know who else he would have.
I'm here.
All right. Welcome, Jay, again. Can you let us know what's happening with this application and give us an overview? And Sean, did you do a review?
I did.
Okay, and then we'll ask Ashley and we'll do our comments from there. So Jay.
All right. So this is an existing structure at 20 Allison Drive. It's in the RR1 zoning district. And a place of worship is a specially permitted use in the zone. So we need a special use permit and a site plan approval for the site. So the best explanation as to the use here is that this is really going to be a multifunctional religious activity meeting place. There'll be adults and youth groups that'll come in periodically. The youth groups will come in for religious training and education. There'll be prayer groups. Adults will come in for prayer groups. There'll be groups for discourse. There may be social events, all relating to religious activities on site. And that's primarily what the intended use of the facility is. The code requires that either that it be owner or tenant occupied. There'll be a full-time tenant occupying the premises at all times by lease. And some of the other factors, I think I noted in my narrative that all of the people coming to and from are going to come by public transportation. It's my understanding there's not going to be any parking on site. So that's a very general overview of what's proposed for the site.
So is it a single family residence at this time?
Believe it is, yes. It's a 7,000 square foot building. I think the deed we referenced in the application was from 2019. The second floor of the structure would be used for the tenant's residence. I believe the entire second floor, but I'll clarify that for you. And then the first floor would be used, the second floor might be used for some office space, but the tenant's residence would be upstairs, and then the majority of then the first floor would be used for the religious activities.
Okay. Sean, do you want to start with your comments?
Sure. As Mr. Monroe mentioned, the use is a special use group 9 in the bulk table for the RR1 zone. The place of worship is that special use is regulated under section 57-13.Q, subsection Q. There's a number of items that will have to be addressed. All but one of them can be waived with the discretion of the planning board. The one that cannot be waived is meeting the New York State Uniform Code, building code. One issue that I saw just running through that list is one of the requirements for the special use is that the access must be gained from a major collector road as defined in the town Monroe comprehensive plan. I didn't see Allison Drive as one of those major collector roads. So, that would likely be something that the planning board would have to waive if entertained. With regards to the bulk table, it appeared correct. I just saw that the maximum number of stories was missing. That's one of the regulated dimensions in the bulk table. And then lastly, the short form EAF was submitted and it identifies a septic system on site, but I did not see where that was on the plan. So I'd look to have that and perhaps an as-built of that provided so that can be evaluated, sizing wise for, comparing the single family dwelling versus the single family with.
Could you repeat what you need there on that?
The as-built of the septic system.
Okay.
So that we can, evaluate the ability of the septic system to accept the additional flow from the additional use.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Sean. Ashley?
Sure. So as both Jay and Sean had mentioned, it's a special use permit. The standards are in code section 57-13 sub Q. So I would ask that Jay submit a narrative going through those various provisions and saying either how the proposal complies or if a waiver is being requested to explain why. And your code allows for a waiver of provisions. It's in your discretion if they place a substantial burden on the religious exercise of a person, religious assembly, or institution. So if that narrative, if there's any waivers being sought, explain them in that context as far as why you believe they place such a substantial burden. Just going through them, I think the landscaping is one that definitely needs to be addressed because no landscaping is proposed, no parking is proposed. I understand they're saying they believe that everyone's going to come from public transportation. I just don't think that's, really plausible. And you have in your code sections for allowing shadow parking. So related to that, there needs to be a, calculation as far as how much parking would even be required so that you could see what you're even being asked to waive. So the parking calculation is either based on the fixed seats or the square footage. So I'm not sure. I think, Jay, I heard you say something about the square footage that's going to be dedicated to the use, but I think I had missed that. So it's either going to be one of the two that have to be shown in a parking calculation, and then any waiver or any shadow parking that, you know, you'd want to seek, because the code does allow the planning board to not require everything to be, all the parking to be constructed right away, but it has to be shown that it could be reserved on site. And it's a large site. I don't think there'd be problem, you know, showing the space for the parking. But those were, yeah, the biggest thing is getting a narrative, explaining the use, explaining how it either meets the criteria in the special use permit standards or why a waiver is being sought for any one of those. As far as seeker, it would be an unlisted action. And I don't believe it is within 500 feet of any trigger requiring referral to the county, but it does require a public hearing because it's a special use permit.
Thank you, Ashley. So board members, do you have questions with regard to this site? Yes, John.
Yeah, Jay, at the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned, I think, 3 or 4 different types of activities that would take place at this residence. And forgive my ignorance, maybe Ashley or Bonnie could answer. Would each of those activities constitute the need for a special use permit?
Well, I think the need for the special use permit is that it is being used as a place of worship. The activities I described do fit within the definition of a place of worship, and any place of worship does need a special use permit per your code. So that's, I think the definition, the uses fit within the definition, and the definition triggers the need for the special use permit. I get that right, Ashley?
Yeah, so John, I could just read for you the definition of place of worship is a structure or place in which worship, ceremonies, rituals, and education pertaining to a particular system of belief are held. Places of worship may include clergy offices, office of the place of worship, meeting rooms to be utilized for various activities and community services offered or sponsored by the place of worship, social halls, except that said social hall may not be utilized as a place of business for a commercial caterer, clergy or caretaker residence, daycare, and recreation areas. So I think if the narrative I was talking about before, if Jay could spell out, because it wasn't clear from the application papers, what exactly is being proposed, and you gave that summary before, and it sounds like, education you had talked about, that's in that definition, and other ceremonies, things like that. So if you could spell out that, I think it'd be helpful for the board. But John, to maybe answer your question, I think what your question was maybe, anyways, that the entire, they're all combined a place of worship. So it's not each one its own place of worship. Is that what you were?
Okay, yeah, the only experience I have with this type of application since I've been on the board is the Kingsville Synagogue. And, we went through excruciating detail as to how many people would be going to that gathering place, at what hours, etc., what days.
Yeah, and I think that was because it fell under a different special use. I don't think we were reviewing that as a place of worship, right?
No, so that was a gathering place. It's a separate special use. So
So gathering place is not a place of worship.
there's two, it's not the same thing. So a gathering place is its own special use. And I think that was, you were trying to figure out the occupancy and figuring out also the parking for that, as far as where people would be parking or where, how they'd be accessing the site. So those are different requirements. But again, we do need to know, how much of the space is going to be used for the place of worship and all that to be able to calculate the the parking requirements.
And the person capacity?
So that was a specific, I believe, to the gathering place.
Ashley, 5713Q6, parking requirements shall be determined based upon peak attendance, notwithstanding the frequency of any peak attendance event, and the number and layout designed in accordance with Article 12 of the zoning chapter. So it's not, I mean, right there, it sounds to me like we have to have an idea of size of the congregation and what to expect as far as peak attendance.
So I think, yeah, so as far as peak attendance, definitely, I think, Jay, that's something that should be addressed in that narrative, that what's the peak attendance going to be? Because that's going to dictate the parking, in addition to the parking that's calculated based on the code standard that's referenced therein.
Okay. All right, and then, okay.
Board members, any other questions, comments?
I've got one, and Ashley touched on it a little bit. Where's the nearest bus station to this place?
No.
Is it reasonable to say that most people are going to be taking public transportation?
I will ask the question, but I was envisioning that this was a drop off at the site. So I'm not sure. I wasn't really envisioning a whole bunch of pedestrian traffic along the road. But I'll have to clarify that for you.
Because this is an offshoot of Cromwell Hill, and that's not for nothing. It's a bit of a raceway at times. So
Yeah, I mean, I have what was in my head. I'll have to clarify it for you.
All right, thank you.
Board members, anybody else have comments?
Well, the first thing that I noticed in just looking at the site plan and reading what was submitted was, if it comes down to a need for parking, the requirement for place of worship is that it can't be in the front. And the way the lot is laid out, it just looks like that's going to be a real challenge. It looks like the building sits at the peak of a hill, that everything falls off around and behind it, and getting in any parking, honestly, of any significance on the site because of that look challenging. But particularly if we're talking about behind the house, we also, the long side of the structure and the entrance to the structure faces away from Allison Drive. The driveway comes up to the side of the building from Allison Drive. It looks like the front of the structure actually faces Cromwell Hill. And then, do we get into a question of, well, where is the front of the building? Where is the rear of the building? So that we're determining where the appropriate place for parking, if that's necessary, really is. These are some of the challenges I saw right off the bat.
Can somebody point out to me where there's a regulation saying the parking can't be in the front?
We're 5713 Q9. No parking or loading shall be permitted between the structure and any street line on which the property fronts. So I think it only fronts on Allison, right?
Got it. Okay.
Although a drop off.
Actually, it fronts to Allison, but the property, interestingly, goes a little piece of it out to Cromwell Hill Road.
Okay.
The way that it's shaped. In fact, it looks like there's some kind of paper right of way that comes out to Cromwell Hill in that vicinity. So the other thing is, I think this is a flag lot, or at least it looks like a flag lot, only because it doesn't actually have, I think, frontage on that paper street. I think it's only getting access from Allison Drive. And there is that requirement in special use permits that these places of worship, because of the fact that they're congregations and, the potential exists for, people to gather there in certain numbers, that they would be off of a major collector. This is a small private, not private, but this is a small cul-de-sac giving access. I may have missed this, Ashley, and I apologize. Is the use already going on there? Is there, or is someone proposing to do this there? So what's happening there right now?
I'm not aware of it going on, but
I'm not either.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe it is. We're not coming in to cure.
Okay.
So, and there's one more thing I'll clarify for you too. I'm not sure this is a specific congregation. This is more like a community center kind of concept. I mean, I'll clarify this, but it wasn't described to me as being a particular congregation. And that kind of is supported by the fact that, I set forth in the brief narrative I gave that the hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that kind of suggests that you don't have a congregation doing, services on the weekend, or it's more of this community gathering place concept that is going to be used for groups that want to come in. Youth groups will come in for religious training. It's not, by enrollment or anything like that. It's just a schedule. They would be scheduled events. So it doesn't really fit the congregation model from what I understand, but I will clarify all that for you.
Yeah.
In terms of the parking, I have not seen the site. I'm not sure how, is it wooded? I'm not sure how.
Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I want to make sure that Sean. Okay.
I have it up if you'd like.
Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
All right, so I'll change the base map, but it's this property here.
Yep.
So this is Cromwell Hill
Yeah.
Road. And then
Yeah.
here's Allison Drive and base map. Let me just get an aerial up.
The point I'm getting to is it likely that wherever we park on the place, it's not going to be visible?
That's hard to say when you say visible.
I mean, certainly.
Because you have surrounding homes. I think that's the question. Is it
It looks kind of wooded to me.
So coming in.
My guess
here,
is that, yeah.
I just don't know from like this, because I don't know what kind of vegetation this is. So, if this is evergreens, it's one thing. If it's deciduous, then it's probably visible in during winter time.
Doesn't look like it would be that difficult to add screening where you pretty much would screen out any visual effect from the parking. So
So this,
what I think is.
This is the driveway stem I was referring to.
Yeah.
It almost looks like a flag. And then over here, there's like a little piece of it that seems to come out to Cromwell Hill.
Yeah.
And this is what seems to be some kind of paper street that once upon a time existed. I don't know if this is going uphill or I don't think it's flat.
No, it's more of a ridge with the house at the top of the ridge.
No, this is on a ridge?
The house, yes.
The house is. Okay. I mean, from my perspective, community character, it's something that's a community center kind of being added to what's a single family residential subdivision. So I would want to definitely know about the activities that are going to go on. Are they going to be outdoor activities? To what extent?
I asked that today. I think 95% of the activities are indoors. If there's a youth group there or something, they want to take a recess, they may go outside for a few minutes, but virtually all the activities are indoors?
I would want to know, I think it's a town road, but to make that determination, I mean, typically, and I could be wrong about this, I thought that school buses don't typically go up cul-de-sacs. Like if you're whatever school district it is in general, I thought that you don't have buses going up cul-de-sacs. And here, you know, I just see that as potentially incompatible depending on the number of buses coming up, you know, what's, you know, again, a small cul-de-sac. But I think, Jay, we want to know about that. You know, when they say buses, how many buses are we talking about? And where are they dropping off? Because, you know, I don't know that they can maneuver around that cul-de-sac. I just don't know. It's just a general question. If you're having buses come up a cul-de-sac, that particular cul-de-sac, that radius, can they turn around? But I think a bigger question is just simply, you know, looking at the use of that site, you know, should there be buses coming up the cul-de-sac?
Yeah. Again, I didn't envision full-size buses as providing pickup and drop off I pictured smaller vehicles, but I will have to clarify the type of vehicles we're expecting to bring anybody who's going to occupy the buses.
Yeah, because I think if it's more like a community center, well, so again, I think we have to clarify, is this a community center? Is it a gathering place? Is it a place of worship? You know,
it's not a community center. I was saying that's more of the concept, instead of it being a particular congregation
that has like religious services.
This is open. Yeah, it's not limited to that. I mean, we don't know. I'm sure different groups will come from different places, but they'll be there for, you know, strictly for religious training and for religious activities and that stuff. So.
And this is going to be a daily thing. No one will stay overnight.
Correct.
As far as you know.
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's in the narrative.
Okay.
What are the ages of the children that would be going here, Jay?
I'll find out. But I would guess school-age children, but I will find out the age groups.
So, because if there's children there, if they're having programs there, it's more of almost like an assembly use. I'm just thinking from a building perspective, because the building is constructed as a single family house, I believe. At least that's what shows up on the tax rolls. And if they're using the spaces for activities and programs, children, et cetera, do they have to meet fire code, you know, building code for a public assembly use? And, you know, so for instance, do they have to show adequate fire suppression systems? You know, what's required from a water supply perspective? Because I think we're going from something that's a house to something that's different, like an assembly use, and sort of what all is required of the building and alteration to accommodate that type of use. So just a general question. I don't know the answer.
I made that note before the meeting started. So I realize we have to look into that for you. So
yeah.
And Bonnie, that's
in my head, yes, that's a good.
The special permit standards require it to be conforming with the uniform code. So either Ben or Sean, I'm sure, could tell you what exactly that is. But
Sure,
Jay, I just wanted to clarify. So are there any violations? Has this use been going on?
No.
Are you sure?
I have no, to my knowledge, it is not going on. And
Well, remind your client that they don't have approval to do that, because if they start operating before an approval, then that's going to be a problem, of course.
Yeah,
So
so I have no problem with that. I'll make sure they're aware of that. But this was not prompted because there was a complaint or anything like that. So.
Board members, do you have any other questions? What other questions do you have of this application? Anybody? Pat, Anthony, do you have anything?
I don't. The only question I would have is in looking at the entrance there coming off where the cul-de-sac is, can it come off the main road? Don't they don't they own the property on the main road too?
I believe that's existing, Pat, the existing driveway.
The existing driveway's off of Allison. I'm not sure where I mean, that would be a.
Do they own any other properties, or that individual only owns the one?
I think it's just this one.
Okay. I mean, this is the real property card. One family residence, 20 Allison Drive, 8.3 acres. You know, when we look at this, I think we should look at the subdivision map that created it, just to make sure there weren't any limitations imposed on that map as far as the use. And so it's showing that's Monroe Fire, Monroe Library, Monroe Town, Lighting, Monroe Refuse, it's in the sewer district.
I'll try to get a title report.
Yeah.
I didn't represent them when they purchased, so, but I'll try to get a title report.
All right, thank
Let me
you.
see what's any restriction.
Yeah, it looks like, according to this, it has a sale date 9/4/2019 from Paramus Associates LLC, who that is. So it's now Aaron Kestenbaum. And just in terms of the tax map, it is where? I think it's off of Here's Round Lake.
To the left, Bonnie, to upper
This-
left,
Right here.
right there. Yep.
Okay. See if I can zoom in a little bit. I don't know, it's going to tell us very much. Yeah, there's been, I guess, little miscellaneous subdivisions here. But yeah, I think we should look at the subdivision here, Tutson Memorial. So I don't know when this was subdivided, but that was definitely one of the lots, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and 7. So that must have been the parcel. All right. So I think there's definitely additional work that has to be done here, and especially in clarifying this use. And is it fitting within, what special use is it fitting within? Does it fit with any of the special uses that are allowed in that zoning district? And then definitely need much more information on utility capabilities. I think the access, the type of traffic that we're talking about. We did talk about drop-offs by bus, but who's going to be caring for these children? They need to park somewhere if they're coming from elsewhere. So it's not just the children, if it's their programs, but what adults are going to be there, et cetera. We'll need to look at the building code. And so definitely just need additional information for this. And of course, special use permits require site plan. So we'll be reviewing that as well, if it fits within one of the special use permits. Ashley, do you want to add anything else?
There's a lot that has to be obviously submitted and then figured out and go from there.
Okay. So I think we've covered as much as we can cover at this point.
All right. So, all right. So just for my knowledge, when's your meetings in December?
Noreen, what's our schedule?
We are December 10th and 15th. Submission date is November 25th, which if I'm not mistaken, that's the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Day before.
the 10th. So it'll be the 23rd. You guys aren't open Friday. Please tell me you're not open Friday.
No, Thanksgiving is the
I don't know.
26th. Submission is Wednesday, the 25th before.
Oh, okay. All right. So November 25th is submission.
Right, by noon.
12 days. 15 days. All right. So I'm assuming without an additional submission, there's nothing to do on Tuesday. We're not on the agenda for Tuesday then.
No,
Okay.
no,
All right.
no,
So,
we need some more information so that, what's the invite date, Noreen, for December?
The 25th. FYI, I am not in the office that day.
All right, so when are you last in the office?
The 24th, I have a ZBA meeting. That's why I'm there that day.
On the 24th?
Yeah. So if we
All
can,
right.
it'd be best if we make submission the 24th so I can get anything PDF'd out before I leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm gone for a few days for the
Alright.
holiday.
Okay.
okay. All right. So we're going to do our best to get an additional submission in
By the 24th.
24th, and that'll get us on for December. And I'm hoping and praying that Ashley took a whole bunch of notes here, so when I call her on Monday, she'll tell me what I'm missing. All right.
Very good. All
Okay.
right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
You
Enjoy.
also.
All right.
And we'll see you next week. I mean,
Okay.
next month. All
Thank you. Take care.
right.
You probably see him Tuesday from Monroe Commons.
Oh, from Monroe Commons, yes. So before I think that's it for the agenda, right? Because we handled
Yeah.
DG. Before we adjourn, I see that we have our supervisor in the wings. And I just want to acknowledge him and give him an opportunity if he just wants to say anything.
Should be coming up as a panelist.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Supervisor.
How you doing, Bonnie?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing. How's everyone doing?
Good.
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 Wow,
Doing good.
I got on just to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and thanks for all your hard work as always.
Thank you. We wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll see you all soon.
Very good.
Hey, Sean, I gotta talk to you tomorrow on Ward District 12, so I'll give you a jingle.
sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks again. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
All right. So, is that Ward in the wings? Is he 9031? Does anybody remember?
I think so.
Let's just see if he has anything to share as far as Conservation Commission items with regard to any of the applications.
Trying to get him to allow to talk. Here we go.
Hi, Ward, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And what's the question?
Well, the question was, we just wanted to find out if you had anything you wanted to add about any of the agenda items. So
I have a couple of things. I do have a couple. First and foremost is that on the little background information for somebody who who are new to this process. The Monroe Conservation Commission was instrumental in the adoption and formation of Chapter 57, of 56, the Wetlands Code. The charter, half the charter members, there were 7 of us, half the charter members were on that commission or committee to write Chapter 56. So whenever you have anything to do with wetlands, I would appreciate that you get us involved. That, and then case in point is the sidewalk on Monroe Commons. To my knowledge, we were not invited on that walk. I don't know. I would like to be proven wrong, but I don't have any recollection of being notified of that walk.
Yeah, I think
So in
we
the future,
definitely, yeah, I
if you could
think
do
we,
that in the future, it would be appreciated.
yeah, sure. I think because that one's been going on a while, I think we actually wanted you to walk the site to provide some information on your observations.
Yeah, and
So,
to dovetail with that, with Dave, we would always, whenever Dave goes on a walk for a delineation, if he could get us involved, we've been on, over the years, numerous walks. I can't even remember the number.
okay.
And every one I've always learned something different. So it's an ongoing process. I like to think of it as exercise and development.
Okay.
So if you could arrange that anytime that we're, and of course, our schedule has to be dovetailed with whatever, with a potential town wetlands consultant.
Right.
But we could do that because we have a common ground there.
Sure.
And also, like with the trees, I mean, we mentioned the problem with the trees, and that's another part of our, as you well know, Bonnie.
Yeah.
We were intricately involved in the tree code. So
Yes.
So we would like to just be part of that discussion. Sometimes we can add something, sometimes we may not, but in any event that we could possibly learn something new that we didn't know.
Yeah, I think, Ward, if you all haven't been out to Monroe Commons, you should be. There's some interesting large diameter trees there that we've been
That's all I've
talking
been
about.
listening to, and I said, yes,
Yeah.
we should be out.
Yeah, I actually thought you'd been to the site, so I apologize. And as far as the wetland scientist, we can make sure that if he's going to go out to the site, that he notify Noreen, and that then Noreen's able to notify your group.
Thank you
to
very
go out.
much.
Bonnie,
So,
I
Appreciate that.
Anthony, but I missed that walk through. So if Ward is going out there, I'd be interested in meeting him out there.
Yeah, we'd love to have Tony or Anthony with us.
Yeah, I
Sure.
was gonna say that I need to get out there myself, so if you guys wanna arrange with
Yes.
Joel to set up a site visit, we can all do it at the same time.
yeah, it's a pretty easy site because essentially they've put down a gravel path to get back toward where they have one well dug and where they were proposing to dig another. And it kind of is a U that goes to the old tire place. And so it's very easy to walk it. And as you're walking along, there are several of these very large diameter trees that are present, which are just, to me, fascinating. And so Karen Arendt was out there looking at them, and one of them did have a hollow in it. But really, I think Ward, you should be out there looking at it. And so certainly, I think John, Anthony, I don't know that Joel has to be there. He may want to be there. But Noreen, if you could kind of organize for everybody to get out there between Ward, John, and Anthony, and whomever else might want to go, that'd be great.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so you can appreciate the site. It looks like it was almost like it almost looks like it was mined. The way that there's a cut in and then where the wetland is. It's just looks like it's disturbed. And, there was an initial wetland map that had been submitted, and then there was a refined wetland map. And the well appears to have been dug on the basis of an old map. And in fact, that's why I think some of the consultants are saying the well, if not in it, is near it. And certainly the staging and grading area may be within the wetland. That's what Dave and Frank have been both, surmising. So again, I think it's useful to get out there. Again, we'll coordinate with Dave and, make sure he reaches out to you, Wade, so that if there's an opportunity, you all can go out there together and certainly learn something. And that's actually true of the planning board members. If someone wants to walk out there while they're there, just let Noreen know if you're interested in doing the walk. Okay.
Okay.
Anything
Thank you.
else? Yeah.
That's
Thank
it
you,
from here.
Ward. Thank
Thank you.
you. Anybody else have comments?
Next Tuesday, I may not be able to be at the meeting,
Okay.
and I won't know really until Monday.
All right. I think if you have the opportunity, Anthony, if you're all right with the scoping document, then just send an email to Noreen. Or if you have any comments or other questions, then, just let her know so she can share it with us for the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And then otherwise, I think we have a quorum. I haven't heard of anybody else not being able to attend. All right. Anything else, Sean or Ashley?
Not at this time.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, nothing from me either.
All right. Thank you all. So with that, then I think we're ready to adjourn. Would someone offer a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No.
May I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Who
right.
made the motion?
It was like Pat.
Okay.
Wasn't
And I
me.
think Jason and
I
Jason
know
seconded.
it wasn't John. He was being fresh.
All right. Thank you all. We will see you Tuesday.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night,
Night.
guys. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye. Bye.